I love Minecraft's Create mod, but in all honesty, I'm terrible at it. So I decided to challenge myself by jumping into the Create Above and Beyond in newer mod pack to see just how far I can get in 100 days. No guides or tutorials, just figuring things out with the very little Create knowledge that I already know. Now knowing all that, join me in this Create filled journey starting on day 1. To start off this world, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I spawned in with 2 books that I couldn't be bothered to read, so I went ahead and explored this ruined structure near me. I got ahead of myself and saw some Create components that I tried to play with, until eventually starting off with punching some wood. After that, I went ahead and made a crafting table and some sticks, as well as a wooden pickaxe. And after getting some stone, I was able to upgrade to a stone pickaxe. Before leaving the structure, I went ahead and grabbed some more stone, as well as the Create blocks. I mean, I can't say no to free items, right? When I was done grabbing what I needed, I did some exploring of the land, and just did a little bit more looting before settling somewhere. Here's a small montage of that. I then went inside what seemed to be a mineshaft entrance, even running into some diamonds at the bottom, but I unfortunately didn't have the tools to grab it yet. After some thinking, and remembering this was in hardcore mode, I decided to leave and just explore this place when I was more prepared. I was then looking for a spot to settle on the map, and it probably wasn't a good idea because it had limited space, but that island in the middle was just speaking to me like it had to be there. And without wasting any time, I went to the island and set up a little base. I also went ahead and read up on the questline for this chapter, and it looks like we have to automate wood, andesite, sand, and kelp to finish this one. But before getting started on that, I went ahead and gathered the materials to make an item named grout, which will be important later. And after making a simple millstone setup, I threw all my crushed iron in there to be turned into iron dust. You might be wondering why I did this. Basically in this mod pack, mining something like iron ore drops crushed iron instead of just regular iron, and smelting crushed iron makes iron nuggets instead of iron ingots, which means you'd need 9 crushed iron for 1 iron ingot. But when you put crushed iron in a millstone, it makes 3 iron dust per crushed iron, and once we do the math, we go from needing 9 crushed iron to only needing 3. Okay, back to the video. I then smelted all my grout into seared bricks, and used that to craft a casting bin, some seared channels which I didn't need, a fuel tank, a seared fuel gauge, and a seared smelter. And after realizing I crafted the wrong item, I went ahead and crafted what I actually needed, which was the seared faucet. And now that we have a simple smeltery, we can use that to smelt all the iron dust we've been making. I also added this lever on the side just to add some automation to it. After that, I went exploring for more materials. Here's all the stuff I ended with afterwards. Honestly, it's not too bad. I then used the materials I gathered to make my first couple stacks of andesite alloy. We're finally about to start diving into the Create stuff. But before we get started on making all those contraptions and machines, we first need an item called kinetic mechanisms. So here's me making a bunch of them. And with the materials I had, I was only able to make 24 kinetic mechanisms. You then use these kinetic mechanisms to make andesite machines. And with what we had, we were able to make 3 of them. And when you smack one of them with an iron block, we're able to make our first Create component, which was the mechanical press. I then used this mechanical press to make some gold sheets, to then make some gold hands, to then finally turn the last 2 andesite machines we had into deployers. And I didn't have the materials for it yet, but the first contraption I wanted to make was a tunnel bore, just so that we'll have an easier and faster way to gather materials. So here's me making that with the materials I have so far. I basically have the whole frame for it done, it's just missing the drills, which is the most important part, but we'll get there soon. But just for now, I was only able to make 4 drills, but soon enough we'll have 9, and then we'll be ready to take it out. Moving on from that, I also found out that there was an easier and cheaper way to make kinetic mechanisms through this sequence recipe, so I immediately got started on that. And honestly, yeah, it was pretty scuffed, but it did what it needed to do, and for way cheaper too. But after doing all that, we got the 9 drills needed for the tunnel bore. And after taking 42 years to set up the deployers, It's finally time to take it out. And once it was on its way, it's time for some tunnel bore action. And honestly, things were going very smoothly until I realized a very big design flaw in this machine. Basically, the area at the back where I'm sitting at is bigger than the area that the drills are mining. So I can't get to where the minecart is, meaning I can't stop the machine. So, nice. So obviously it's time to panic trying to get back to the minecart. But eventually we were able to get back to the minecart, thankfully. And just after mining this last few bits of diamonds, I decided to call it a day for mining for now. This is all the materials I got after that mining session, which is honestly not too bad considering how short it was. After making some more kinetic mechanisms and andesite machines, I decided to turn them into 2 deployers, 1 mechanical saw, and a sediment strainer, which we'll need to automate sand. But before we do that, we first need to make a strainer filter, and here's the materials I need for that. But I wanted to take a quick little break from the create stuff, so I started building a house. My general idea was to have a house that was powered by a windmill, so here's me trying to do that. I immediately then realized I was not built for that builder life, so I just went out and grabbed the materials anyway. I also ate an item called a dream seed and started feeling some weird things. Apparently it opens my third eye, so that was kinda cool. After some resource gathering, I was able to make some strainer filters. This allowed us to finally use the sediment strainer to make sand. And to do this, we just need to have water on top of the sediment strainer, and then we can put the filter inside it. An easy and neat way to do this is to just put a waterlogged leaf on top of the sediment strainer. Now that we have this working in the background, we are kind of automatically making sand. But later on, we can actually use this to kind of automate making clay. But that won't be until much later. So anyways, I just decided to continue building my house. Here's what I ended up with so far, and I did not like it, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I immediately teared it down. And I ended up with something I actually liked. Of course, this is just the frame of the house. After that, I tried using the windmill bearing that I found at the start of the video, just to kind of work on the first contraption I have to make for the mod pack. But after realizing how ugly it would look, I decided to just switch things up and use a mechanical bearing instead. This meant I had to power it by something else, but it's nothing a water wheel can't fix, right? And after finding a nice spot for this contraption, I started digging a hole. This is where the water wheel will go to power the mechanical bearing. And if you're curious about what farm we're making right now, we're making a kelp farm. After powering the mechanical bearing, I went ahead and made a border for where the kelp will go. I then built up the walls to be at least 3 blocks high, so the kelp will have room to grow. I then went ahead and placed the harvesters, and a really neat thing about them is you don't need to glue them onto your builds, they just stick on naturally. And after making sure the harvesters were in the proper place, I went ahead and made the collection system as well. After gluing everything and making sure it worked properly, the only thing missing was the kelp, and that meant we were officially done our first farm. Kind of, because there was a bit of an issue with the collection system. But after some pondering and learning how these portable storage thingies worked, I finally made a system that actually worked. Which meant now we officially finished our first automated farm, which was kelp. Honestly, it felt really good finally getting to check off something important off the quest list, though we have a long way to go. Next up on the list of things to do is to automate andesite. And the way the mod pack wants us to do this requires us to dig to bedrock, so I immediately set up a contraption to do that. Basically, this contraption just uses a rope pulley to push down these 9 drills until they hit bedrock. But I ran into some issues. But after some gluing and some pondering, I finally got it to work. And while that was working in the background, I used some flowers and mixed it with water to make some belts. and continued working on my windmill house. And here's how it's looking so far. Honestly, I just need to put one more blade and the house is finished. And all things considered, I know I'm not the best builder, but this turned out pretty good. And once it was done and I hooked it up to the windmill bearing, everything was working. Honestly, watching the windmill spin was so cool. I could literally sit there for hours. Anyways, after admiring my windmill, I put it to good use right away by putting in a gear ratio. I then hooked up the gear ratio to my conveyor belt and my sequence crafting deployers. Now I don't have to manually make kinetic mechanisms. After finishing up my house, my digging mechanism finally made its way to bedrock. And after making my way down there, I went ahead and cleared up a little area for where the andesite farm will go. After making a good little area for myself, it was time to start building it. And the way the mod pack wants us to make these andesite generators is basically you'd make a cobblestone generator as you would with water and lava, but it just has to be over bedrock. And after doing that, there's a chance for granite, diorite, and andesite to spawn. We're just focused on the andesite though. After setting up all the drills and generators, I then went ahead and set up the power for this thing, which just required a bunch of water wheels and a bunch of gear ratios. And if you're wondering how we're going to bring it up to the surface, basically I'm using a fan to pull items to it, and then using a bubble column to actually bring it up. Just staying simple, you know? And after a quick test to see if it was working properly, it was time to make the collection system on the surface. And the collection system was nothing special really, it just had a conveyor belt to actually take the items, and then I had it sort through 3 different storages, one for each block, you know? And one ugly gear ratio afterwards, we finally have a working andesite farm, so that's another thing we can check off the quest list. Now we only need to make the wood farm and the clay farm. For this chapter at least. Did I forget to mention there's like 5 chapters you have to do, each getting progressively harder and harder. So yeah, we're in for quite the ride here. After some time, I actually realized that the andesite farm wasn't too efficient, so I went down and basically changed the whole mechanism. So instead of having 3 drills breaking the blocks, which would actually sometimes cause like blocks to get stuck in them when new blocks would spawn too fast, I had this piston powered by an observer clock push the blocks into 1 drill and then just have that break and then have the fan pull it. It's basically the same system, just a different andesite generator. And once that was done, I actually found this to be more efficient, so yeah, that was a pretty valuable change for me. Without wasting any time, it's time to get started on the wood farm. So I went ahead and built a little like framework for it. And with a little bit of magic, a wood farm might just Anyways, as I was saying, I meant with a little bit of magic, a wood farm might just appear. Oh my god, it's so awesome, oh my god. Anyways, let me run you guys through the system. Basically, this wood farm uses a minecart contraption, and it has some deployers to put down more saplings, and then obviously you need the saws to cut down the trees. And over here is the collection system. Basically, I have it filter out things like saplings, sticks, or apples, and then the wood gets dispensed out into this sawing mechanism thingy. And then basically that makes slabs, because we need slabs to make the kinetic mechanisms, right? I also made like a very ugly looking windmill under it. This is actually what's powering the entire thing, because yeah, this is the best source of energy we have access to right now. And there's also this balcony, which I don't really know what to put there yet, but it's there. But yeah, wood farm completed. Shortly after finishing the wood farm, I was just about ready to finish chapter 1, so I found a nice little area to do the clay farm. And a couple days after, and a little bit more magic, clay farm completed. I decided not to show the building process for it because it's very, very simple actually. It just had a bunch of sediment strainers with funnels either funneling filters into it or outputting the sand, which gets cleaned by this fan, which makes the clay. Yeah, pretty simple. And unfortunately, the system isn't fully automatic yet because as of right now, we don't have anything to automate making the filters, but in the future, we should be able to. And if you're wondering how I'm powering this thing, yeah, I just built another ugly windmill under it. But that almost marks the end of chapter 1. Our final goal is to connect all these things together and automate kinetic mechanisms themselves. Which basically means we'll have access to unlimited andesite machines. Like, how awesome is that? Seeing as how we're basically halfway into this challenge, I wasted no time in starting the final part of chapter 1. So I started by digging out a large area and just making a layout of where the build is gonna go. Once that was done, I just did one more gloss over the quest to make sure I knew what I was doing. As you can see from me trying to make andesite alloy, I clearly know what I'm doing. Anyways, it's time to start the building montage. Take it away! One building montage later, it's finally time to test to see if it works. I was honestly crossing my fingers so hard here, but then seeing it make its first like bunch of kinetic mechanisms just made me so happy. Like, I can't believe the system actually worked. And like, honestly, the factory itself, like, it looks pretty cool. Like, it's so nice to see like all the different buildings we made just come together, you know? But with that, finally marks the end of chapter 1. Yeah, we did it! It only took us about I think 50 something days, so yeah. Anyways, we're now on day, I'm not even gonna say it. The reason for the time skip is because I just did a bunch of stuff that wasn't really relevant to the mod pack. Like, I made this cool underground area with the ore processing system, and which doesn't seem to handle overflow, but that's okay. As well as just organize my materials, you know, before starting chapter 2. Anyways, the first thing to do for chapter 2 is to make an infinite skystone thingy. But first we need to find a meteor for that. And on the map, they just look like these big crater thingies. So I immediately went ahead and basically just grabbed it all, or as much as I could. And I immediately started designing a skystone mill design. Basically, I just need something to take in the skystone dust and then re-input the skystone block into the stone mill, and it basically just runs forever. Like, it's infinite. Honestly, this is one of the more easy machines to build, and here's the finished product. So that's one thing we can check off the quest list, and the next thing I wanted to get started on was the skystone mixer, which just needs skystone dust mixed with water. But first I wanted to look for another item we needed, which was called Certus quartz, and let me tell you, it took me so long to actually figure out where to find this. I was looking for it underground, I went to the nether, until I did a quick deep dive into the mod pack and saw this. Yeah, I completely missed it when I went to the meteor to get the skystone blocks. So after digging into that meteor, I finally found it, along with this weird looking block in the center, which is probably important, so I went and grabbed that as well. And when I came back, I decided to use the balcony of the wood farm as a way to get rubber, which is very helpful because we can make belts. It's just a lot easier in the long run rather than having to get a lot of flowers. And it was also pretty easy to make. I just needed a bunch of arboreal extractors and then routed that into one pipe system pointing into a basin. So now I can just basically scoop up some rubber fluid and have infinite rubber, which is infinite belts. So yeah, cool conveyors for days. Another reason why I made that rubber tree thingy was because we needed copper machines to actually progress in chapter 2. So yeah, here's me making my first couple copper machines. And by couple, I mean one. So before building the skystone mixer machine, I actually got interested in building the Certus quartz section of the questline. And the way the mod pack wants us to automate Certus quartz is by having these Certus quartz seeds, and you have to place water on them 12 times. And that will basically give you 2 Certus quartz, so you can keep one for yourself and then have one go back into the system. And honestly, I thought it was pretty smart because I thought I had a system where I only needed one conveyor belt until I realized I actually had no way to pick up the finished Certus quartz, and it just kept looping forever and ever and ever. So yeah, I definitely got humbled there. But anyways, I remade it and just placed another conveyor line at the back, and everything worked. Here's the setup in action. And that's Certus quartz pretty much kind of automated. Like, we're kind of speedrunning chapter 2 right now. Anyways, after that, I just did some reorganizing, and now it was time to finally tackle on the skystone mixer. So I started laying out the foundations for that, basically extending my skystone mill setup. And honestly, this was pretty easy to do. Just hook up the skystone dust into a basin along with water, and then have it mix, and you can store it wherever you want, really. But I actually ended up moving everything outside so that I'll have a easier time and just have a cleaner view of everything instead of just making every machine underground. And in the process of moving everything outside, I also started this rice farm, which is important because it'll help us automate the sediment strainer filters. I don't show it here, but the next thing to do on the quest list was to make an iron farm. And most of you that's played Create probably know how I'm going to do this, but basically we're going to be milling down stone into gravel and then washing the gravel, and there's a chance that it'll drop iron nuggets. Overall, another pretty basic machine. And as I'm building this iron farm, you might have noticed that I'm using the conveyor chains to route my power, which is honestly such a nice feature to have. Like the post-production update or whatever it's called, such a nice update. Anyways, I hope you enjoy me building this very basic iron farm. I honestly just have no words for this part. And after fixing that minor inconvenience, it was time to hook it up. Now surely I don't mess this up, right? Oh my gosh. Not to worry, the fix only required me to make it just a tiny bit slower. I mean, it'll hurt the rates, but at least it works. Now, did I say it worked? I actually lied. And as long as we just ignore how much cog wheels I used for this for some reason, everything works. Hooray! And with that iron farm completed, that's another thing we can check off the quest list. After miserably failing at making a simple iron farm, I took a little break and tended to my rice farm. They're the only things keeping me sane. And noticed that I was always running out of food, so I made like a little pen at the back of my house just to breed some animals. You know, not everything has to be about the Create mod, you know? And after a long, adventurous journey, the cows finally made it back home safe. Only to be eaten. But they don't have to know that. Anyways, once those little side quests were done, the next thing to do was to make brass. And the way the mod pack wants us to do that is by mixing liquid copper and liquid zinc. So yeah, here's me trying to build that. And the reason I'm building this underground is because my ore processing system is here, so I might as well. Here's the finished product, and that's going to be cooking brass for us in a minute. Once that machine is making brass for us, I went ahead and demolished this entire mountain because I needed space to build the next project. And that next project is basically a better system for the Certus quartz, as well as the air to actually charge it, because we need to turn this into charged Certus quartz. You get what I mean. And basically kind of the way I thought to upgrade my Certus quartz maker thingy was basically just to add more spouts. So the setup underground only had one spout spitting water on it, but this one will have 4. So hopefully that makes it a little bit faster. Though ideally you'd want 12 maybe spitting out water, but I don't have the materials for that. Quick brass break. Here's the finished product, and right now I don't have a way to actually separate it because you'd want one Certus quartz for yourself and then you'd want to feed one back to the system. So I have to do it manually, but hopefully soon we'll be able to figure a way around that. And while that was running, you already know I had to tend to the rice farm. And once my upgraded Certus quartz maker was done, it was time to start experimenting with how this charger thingy even worked. Basically, you place it down and then you make this Sterling Dynamo item thingy and place it on top of it, and this thing actually holds the fuel for the charger. I also made use of these hopper upgrades just to, save on a little bit more iron. Not that we needed to. It was just nice to, use a little more items from the mod pack, And once the fuel was loaded in, we were charging Certus quartz. So yeah, it's like another thing we can check off the quest list. I have no idea how many times I've said that phrase. Anyways, now we have to mix the charged Certus quartz with our skystone solution, which makes liquid redstone. But before that, let's quickly appreciate how these little machines are like slowly getting connected. It's so cool. Anyways, we were now like over 80% done with the challenge, and I finished the system, applied the filters, had to resort to spamming more water wheels because it kept overstressing. You know, just the typical signs of a professional Create mod user. But once that was all said and done, it was finally time to test it out. And I had no idea that mixing charged Certus quartz with the Skystone solution would actually produce not only the destabilized redstone that we needed, but also a clean uncharged Certus quartz. So yeah, that was unexpected. The other funny thing was that the Certus quartz mixing with destabilized redstone was actually the next part of the puzzle, so it all just went in that one basin and just started mixing together. I had no way to stop it. But it's fine for now. I'm sure future me will, you know, fix it and actually make it so that it doesn't do that. But, you know, who knows. Anyways, I made another sequence crafter, but this time it's for sequence mechanisms, which we need to make brass machines. But it turns out I actually got the recipe wrong. It's not polished rose quartz that you need to make it. It's this item called electron tubes, which you can get by spouting molten iron onto the rose polished quartz. But, you know, that meant now we can actually start making brass machines. You know, if these chain drives could work with me here. And, you know, eventually they did. Yeah, just in the wrong direction. But after some tweaks, you know, it finally went in the right direction. And honestly, this is so satisfying to watch. And eventually we have brass machines. Before continuing my progress with chapter 2, now that we have brass machines, I went ahead and made some sediment strainer filters because our clay farm actually stopped working while we were working on chapter 2. So yeah, we were not making any kinetic mechanisms at all. But once that was all sorted, we can just go back to doing chapter 2, which is the fun stuff. And right now what I'm trying to do is basically just have one system flow from the Skystone solution all the way to the stabilized redstone where we make our rose polished quartz. And after building that system, it was finally time to enter the nether. And I'm doing this because it's time for us to get some blaze burners working. So for that we need to find a fortress and get some blazes. Thanks to the minimap, I easily spotted that there was a fortress right there. And I set a waypoint to it and started making my way. This is probably not the safest way to do it, but you know, I was feeling risky with it. Yeah, let's just say my heart stopped at this point. After that terrifying moment, I found the blaze spawner and just yeeted the hell out of there as fast as I could. I also found a major issue in my chapter 1 factory, and pretty sure you can make it out for yourselves. But anyways, the reason why we needed blaze burners is for our next project, which is a steam engine, because I'm sick of using windmills for power. Like, they're cool and all, but they suck. We need more. So here's me building that. And I know there's a bunch of stages for steam engines, but we're skipping all the way to level 9, baby. Like, give me all the power in the world, please. Can't keep using these water wheels forever, man. I also want to make it so that the steam engine was self-sustainable, so it powered itself. So that's kind of what this section is for. For the life of me, I could not get this thing to power on for some reason. Until it occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, a level 9 steam engine can't be powered by just one water pump. So surely enough, literally the second I added a second water pump, it was fully working, producing basically 150,000 stress units. Yeah. I can basically just get rid of every single water wheel I ever made. Once that was completed, I immediately placed a chain conveyor on top of it and connected it to my system. Or so I tried at least. And there it was. Finally done. Now that we have a very dependable source of power, the next thing I wanted to do was clean up our area a little bit, because honestly it was a mess out here. And right now our main goal is to connect all the systems we have and basically semi-automate electron tubes so that we can make brass machines easily. And right now, really, the main mess was between the Skystone solution mixer and the destabilized redstone mixer. And basically all the cleaning that I did basically just puts the skystone mixer and the stabilized redstone mixer just all in like one line so that it's easier to, you know, like follow. And then lastly, I made another smelting area for the molten iron to then be spouted onto the polished quartz, which almost finishes the setup for the electron tubes. And now that we have access to brass machines, another upgrade we can make to our Certus quartz farm is to basically fully automate the whole thing. Because before we had brass machines, the way I was automating the Certus quartz was by milling it down into Certus quartz seeds and then duplicating it with sand. But the nice thing is that this mod pack actually has a way to just go straight from Certus quartz into the Certus quartz seeds, which is by putting it into a mechanical crafter, which you can only unlock if you have brass machines. But you know, a machine isn't a machine that I made if it didn't have any errors. But after some, you know, trial and error, our Certus quartz maker is finally fully automated. Now that that was done, I added another level of automation to the skystone mixer to the stabilized redstone mixer. And the purpose of this was basically to funnel out the clean Certus quartz that mixing charged Certus quartz into the skystone solution produces and funnel that into the destabilized redstone mixer so I don't have to do it manually. And if you don't understand what I just said, just know that doing this makes everything more automated. I also went ahead and moved the sequence crafting thing for the sequenced mechanisms outside so that it was easier. Like, it was just easier having everything outside at this point. After just doing a general observation of all the farms we've made so far, I wasn't too happy with like how slow it was, so I went ahead and did some changes to the steam engine. I basically just hooked it up to a one of those speed controllers so everything would move faster. But now that that was done, it was time to make a simple rice farm, so that the manual tending to the rice farm, it will finally be over, but it will be missed. And as you can see here, milling down rice actually gives a straw, which is why it was important. Once everything was glued together, the contraption was done. Now we have automated rice. Hooray! Another thing that I wanted to automate was rubber, because honestly it was getting so annoying and tedious having to grab the rubber fluid, press it down, yada yada yada, okay? So here's me making an automated rubber farm. Once the rubber farm was completed, I went ahead and built up the walls around my steam engine. I was trying to give it this power plant type of feel, you know? Though I don't think I did a very good job at it. But I was pretty happy with the finished product, which I think is what matters. And honestly, instead of working through chapter 2 right now, I was kind of just making some quality of life changes here. Like over here, I was changing up the initial issue I had with the chapter 1 factory. So now that even if we run out of clay, once I fill it up with sediment strainers, it'll just work like normal again. And after that, I just did a little bit more mining for some fuel because we were running out for some reason. But I just went ahead and got a couple stacks because honestly we were running pretty close to the 100 days. But look how much electron tubes we have though. Also went to the nearby village and got myself a mending villager. And finally we were back to working on chapter 2. And this is the quest I wanted to do, which was basically we need infinite lava. Somehow. And the way I thought was gonna work was basically going through the nether and having a lava pump and have it pump through the portal and then maybe have like a place to pick it up on the other side. But as you can see, I don't even know how nether portals work, so yeah, that's a good sign. So now my alternative idea was to build a really long pipe system all the way to my original portal. Yeah, I thought I was a genius. And on day 99, a ghast tried to kill me. Just some average Minecraft stuff. But eventually I was able to get my pipeline network all the way up to my portal. So now all that was left for me to do was basically build the collection system. Until unfortunately realizing not only was I out of time, but this was not a viable method to get lava. I mean, there's literally no lava going through the portal right now. So unfortunately, it is a bitter end, but we ended on a loss. So yeah, this is how far I got in 100 days of playing Create Above and Beyond. And if you were watching for this long, thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, do consider hitting subscribe to maybe see me continue this world and eventually finish it, because honestly it was a lot of fun. But for now, this is all I have for today, so enjoy this little montage I made of everything we built throughout this video.